Hi, my name is Gibson, and I'm the co-owner and creator of the Personal Development School. This is your daily breakthrough video, and today I really want to address a question I get asked a lot. And this question is, when do I know that it's time to leave a relationship? Okay, so number one, leaving a relationship is very difficult. And the brain is more wired to avoid pain than it is to seek pleasure. So it's not uncommon that sometimes, unless there's something really, pulling us in a different direction away from the relationship, it's not uncommon that our natural inclination is to just stay in a relationship, even when it's making us unhappy, because we're just afraid of the pain of being alone or the pain of loneliness itself. Now, this sort of goes in alignment with relationship addiction to a certain degree. And I'm going to make a separate video about that. And, I just want to say one important note is that often with individuals who are relationship addicts, and I'm sort of going on a tangent here, but people who are really addicted to relationships, they see all of their partner's behavior as being for or against them. They have a hard time seeing their partner's behavior as just being neutral and about what the partner is feeling and thinking and going through. And so it can make life very difficult when you're seeing things through that filter. So I just want to put that out there sort of as a side note, but I'll make another video about this in a lot more detail. So going into like how we know when it's time to leave a relationship, well, this is what I always recommend. I always recommend that unless you're in an abusive relationship, okay, of any kind, any type of abuse, physical, sexual, mental, emotional, verbal, if any abuse is happening, you leave immediately, and there should be no questions asked, and you do the work to pick up the pieces and heal afterwards. And you will honestly only ever regret not doing that. But outside of that, here's the rule of thumb that I think truly everybody should follow. Number one, create a time period that is in relationship to how much you have invested in that relationship and how much it matters to you. And this will be a time boundary. It's more of a boundary than anything else. So let's say, for example, that your time period is, maybe you've been married for 10 years and you have kids and you have a house together and you're financially intertwined, and it's really important to you that your kids see a healthy marriage. Then you're probably not going to pick 6 weeks. You might pick a time boundary of 12 months, maybe 18 months, right? And during this time period, you are going to do absolutely everything you can to salvage the relationship. You're going to practice communicating your needs. You are going to learn the tools to properly show up in a romantic relationship. You're going to learn the important pillars of what makes relationships work. You are going to go through basically everything you can, okay? Expressing your feelings and needs, validating your partner's emotions, trying to empathize instead of sympathize, which really means like trying to understand where your loved one is coming from when they do what they do or feel what they feel. And you're going to do everything you can for that entire period that you've chosen. Maybe if it's a 6-month relationship, you're going to pick 1 month to do it. Maybe if it's a year-long relationship, you're going to pick 2 months. Like, you have to really tune in and pick what time boundary works for you based on how much you care and how much you have invested. And then from that perspective, if you've done everything you can and you haven't seen significant progress by the time your time boundary runs out, then you know in your heart of hearts that it's time to move on, and you know that you get to walk away guilt-free and regret-free. So this is what I recommend. Now, if you see significant improvement and positive change from your partner, then obviously you can re-extend that time boundary and you can say, okay, this is going really well. These are the changes I now want to see, and I'm going to give it this long to change. And if you're seeing like movement like this, where you're getting like up movement and then down movement, but up, but if you've got a net positive, then you know that you're moving in the right direction, and that's a beautiful thing. But if you see like a little blip and then everything's just sort of downhill, you have to really take clear inventory and be completely honest with yourself. And so this is a really important thing to do. And I want you to keep in mind when you're doing this, just because you express a need once doesn't mean that the person's supposed to remember forever. We have our own conditioned patterns in terms of how we operate in a relationship and what we think is valuable and kind and correct. And so sometimes we have to break a pattern out of a relationship, which essentially means reprogramming it in both of our minds. A, the way that we communicate a need and express it, and B, that somebody else remembers that we have this need and can naturally begin to take it into consideration. And in order for that to take place, There is required, it is required that you have consistency in your self-expression of what's important to you during this period. So if you say, like, hey, I need you to remember to call me when you're leaving work, for whatever reason that might be, that it's important to you, you can't say it once and then expect the person to remember. You have to gently remind the person as much as possible, as long as that's a fair need that they can also take into consideration. So remember, do the work during this time period. Do the work consistently. Express yourself consistently and kindly and effectively. And if you don't see any changes during that time period, then you have your answer. And if you do see changes, then you know that what you're doing is working. And if you don't see changes during this time period, at least you've shown up and done all the work and prepared yourself to operate really healthily and really effectively in your future relationships. And you get to do the subconscious repatterning of making your needs matter because you consistently and repetitively express them, and all of those other things. So it's a really powerful thing to do. And I hope that answers that question for a lot of you who have been reaching out and asking me that. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.